Hi there, and welcome back to another edition of ScaleUp Radio, the podcast inspired by the Entrepreneurial ScaleUp System and designed to make navigating our scale-up journeys that little bit easier by learning from others' experiences. I'm Kevin Brent, and this week on the show, we bring you one of our themed episodes where we look at a particular aspect of scaling up. And this time, it's a summary of our research findings into the challenges of scaling a business to and beyond seven figures. And understanding and recognizing these challenges is an important part of understanding the Entrepreneurial ScaleUp System and how it can help to address them. And most of the challenges that we face in scaling our businesses are common across businesses and sectors. According to the latest government statistics, there are around 6 million private sector SMEs within the UK, of which 5.7 million, that's 96%, have fewer than 10 employees, and less than 1% have more than 50 employees. And these figures are similar around the world. It's not just the UK. So why is it that just 4% of businesses can scale beyond 10 employees? And more importantly, what is preventing the average business owner from continuing their scale-up journey and reaching 20, 25 employees or 50 or more? And so I take us through some of the key aspects, followed by a great talk with some great insights from Chris Cook, who is the founder of Chantry Group. And they're the leading franchise growth agency in the UK and have enjoyed significant growth in the last few years. So make sure you listen on, make sure you don't miss any future episodes by subscribing to ScaleUp Radio wherever you like to listen to your podcast. And you can also nominate a guest for ScaleUp Radio if you know someone with an interesting scale-up story. You can find out how in the show notes. So let's listen on. This time around, we're going to take a bit of an overview of the challenges of seven-figure success and beyond, and actually take a look at some of the findings from some research that we did a couple of years back. Because understanding some of these challenges enable us to see where the Entrepreneurial ScaleUp System fits, but it also enables us to head off some of these things at the past, but to recognize them when they come and to have some strategies for dealing with them. And where this dotted blue line is on the scale-up journey here, then literally 96% of businesses are to the left of that. And if we look at the 40 to 61, less than 1% of businesses beyond that. So what are some of the reasons that might explain why so few businesses do scale? So some of the key challenges that emerged from our research, and these are the top 5 that came across from the whole group of people that took part in this. And you can see that some of these key challenges are getting dragged back into the day-to-day. That's the first one there. Generating leads of sufficient quality and quantity. Having the right staff in place to support growth, getting staff to think and act and take responsibility in the way that we'd like them to as the owner, and keeping on track with the plan. And whilst these challenges do scale and change slightly along the scale-up journey, these are the key ones that came out overall. What is clear as we grow is that the middle one there, they're getting the right staff in place to support growth and getting staff to think and act and take responsibility, come even more to the fore as we grow. So they are essentially the symptoms. And they're the ones that we see that get in the way of us scaling up to that next level. But looking a little bit deeper to the underlying causes, rather than just taking a headache pill for the headache, what is the actual underlying cause here? Well, they fall into 5 main areas as far as we can see. And I've just listed them here, and I'll look at them in a little bit more detail with some recommendations in a minute. But lack of desire and confidence, first of all, not understanding the importance and the role that personality and leadership, our own personality plays, and leadership within the business, not understanding actually what it really takes to scale, a lack of focus on team culture and engagement, and getting stuck in kind of chicken and egg conundrum. And I'm going to run you through each of these in just a little bit more detail and take a little bit of a look before some recommendations. So desire and confidence. First of all, not all of us want to scale, and that's absolutely fine. So we might not want to take on more staff, whatever it might be, but we're quite happy to get to a point that we want to get to. Equally, most of us become more risk averse as we grow. When we started, we had nothing to lose, probably, when we started our business. When we get to a business with £1 million turnover or something like that, we've now got something to lose. So maybe we're less likely to want to push again and take more risk, but also recognizing when to scale and having the confidence to invest the time and money in business growth comes at that sort of level again. The second one was around personality and leadership. So understanding and recognizing that we need to balance the strengths and challenges of our personality profile by building a balanced team around us as we reach the different stages of the scale-up journey. And creating a high-performing team culture, we need to give real focus to that, maintaining that common purpose that's easier in the startup phase, but harder to keep going as the team grows. And then this business of understanding what it really takes to scale and looking at creating a really truly scalable business model, not just one that if we take on more people, it grows proportionally to the costs that we take on, but how can we really scale and what's our competitive advantage? And I'll look at that in a moment. But recognizing that the scale-up journey is a series of stepping stones. It's not just a straight line or a wiggly line growth. And we've got transitions that we have to make in between and really thinking about it as steps. And then understanding the need for that true profitability, not necessarily just what comes out from our accountant as the profit at the end of the day, but really correctly accounting for all sorts of discrepancies, such as and things that can distort our P&L, like market rate director salaries. We may not put our own salaries properly into the P&L. And then moving on to focusing on culture and team engagement, placing the right emphasis on the importance of team engagement and culture, including team metrics and performance indicators. And then this overcoming the chicken and egg. We know it takes people and cash to scale. And in the early days, we don't have the cash. It's not generated from the business enough to invest in loads of people, but without investing in the business, we're probably unlikely to get to the point where it is self-financing. So if we knew it was going to be a success, if we absolutely had a crystal ball and we knew we were going to succeed, we would beg, borrow and steal, and we'd find the money and we'd have the confidence to do it. But we don't. So how do we get the confidence to go looking for that money? And that brings us back to the point one really here is that confidence. And many of us fall into the trap of working too much on the business, too much in the business and not on the business. And we've heard that expression many times before, creating that kind of owner's trap that we can get ourselves into. So how do we break out of that? So let's look at some recommendations before we get to Chris. Desire and confidence, then defining your purpose. So why is it that we want to scale? Are we just trying to scale for the point of it? What is behind our own reasons for really wanting to scale? Do we want to provide just an income from the work that we do, or do we want to create a business that generates cash flow as we sleep, as it were? And either's fine, but we just need to be really clear on what we want. And of course, the latter requires us to create a business machine that operates without us. And typically, up to that version with that blue dotted line, up to 8 to 12 people, that probably gives us a degree of financial freedom, which allows us to choose how much we work, probably, but building to that next stepping stone really should lead to true financial independence, where we don't actually have to work at all. We've got complete freedom to choose what we want to do. So it really comes down to knowing our why and having a real desire and appetite to achieve it. But that is one half of the equation. The other half of the equation is balancing that with the risk. And the clearer that we can be about some of the key risks and understand them and be able to see what we might be able to do about them, helps us to create that comprehensive plan then to think about mitigating those risks. And that includes over-reliance on key individuals, of course. So planning ahead and putting risks into context essentially is what this is about, taking risks that we understand and being brave, not rash. So that's part of desire and confidence. And then also this idea of seeking external validation or accountability partners. And you can do this in a number of different ways, early stages and throughout, things like peer boards, like our smart boards. As we grow, we may want to consider getting non-executive directors in, perhaps a mentor in our sector, and maybe setting up an advisory board of our customers. But all of these give us that external validation, which gives us that confidence. And at the appropriate time, we might want to consider taking investment into the business. And of course, there's nothing like having somebody else committed to putting money into the business to give us a bit of confidence in that. And even just the exercise of going through explaining to a potential investor why your business is so great is a really great thing to do. And again, validating our and giving ourselves a confidence boost. So there's some of the things in desire and confidence. If we look at personality and leadership now, then yes, we want to assemble a diverse team with complementary profiles to create that really good harmonious and dynamic work environment. And it's easy to say at first glance, and it may seem a little obvious. We like to use insights from DISC profiling, and we correlated some of the key DISC profiles against the scale-up journey. And for example, found very much that the D style or the Hawk style attributes play best in the very early stages of a business, along with the cockatoo I styles, to get a business off the ground. But these need to be balanced as we start to grow with the more of the owl or the C type tendencies and the dove or the S type as we grow, to try and systemize our business and build those effective teams. So we need to adapt and change our style a little bit, and also make sure we're thinking about that and bringing other people in the business to address that. And equally, we need to think about defining the culture that we want within the business before our team does it for us, because a culture will develop within our business, whether we've defined what it is and controlled it, or whether we just let it. So we want to make sure we get the culture that we want. And a great exercise to supplement DISC profiling and comparison discussions is developing a team behavioral charter, so that can become a baseline for the team and individual behaviors. So we need to be consistent on focus and proactively focused on building the right team culture that we want, as opposed to leaving it to the last minute. And that comes back to, again, focus and mission clarity. And again, the clearer that we are, the clearer we use tools like our smart web planning process, Smart 90 process, to develop a really good 3-year plan, driving focus and engagement and alignment amongst our teams, is where we want to get to, and embed that fully within our businesses. And again, it's about not trying to do too many things at once, experimenting, finding what works, what doesn't, learning and adapting until we find what works for you. I said in understanding what it takes, and I'd look a bit more at competitive advantage. And this is about really understanding what it is that gives us an advantage, not just a unique selling proposition. And it's a little bit different from that, because we will reach a ceiling, wherever that is, if we don't have a truly well-defined competitive advantage and the right model that will scale. And if you can't articulate your competitive advantage, what gives that to you, not just what makes you different, but what actually gives you an advantage in the marketplace, and how you can reinforce that over time so it doesn't get taken over, then you will hit a ceiling. So that's worth a lot of effort to really think about. And it is different from a USP. And when we research businesses, the vast majority of businesses believe they have a USP. I was a little bit surprised that it wasn't 100%, but nearly 80% of businesses said they had a USP, but only about 34% had a competitive advantage. And when it came down to then looking at whether they had a truly scalable business model to back that up, only about 7%. So again, we're getting hints here as to why the majority of businesses don't take that scale, manage to scale. And then understanding and navigating that scale-up journey, understanding, as I said, is that series of stepping stones, knowing where you are and whether you're in a period of climbing up to the top of one of those ladders, or whether you're trying to navigate one of those valleys of death to the next pillar. Where are you, and what is it you need to do to either get you to the top, or to get you to the next stepping stone? And finally, within that section, this idea of profitability, we really do have to think about understanding the numbers, and it becomes more and more important as we get to that transition from going from 8 to 12 people to 2025, understanding how to use our profit and loss to really drive good business decisions. And that's what it's about. That's why we need to understand our financials, is ultimately to drive really good business decisions, whether we should be investing for growth or whether we should be looking to improve the margins and things like that. And poor financial understanding is another key reason for businesses not scaling. So if you don't understand financials very well, make an effort to make sure you have someone that does. It might be taking on a fractional CFO or something like that, but don't use that as an excuse for not understanding the financials yourself. Find a way that you can educate yourself a bit more if you don't. And at the end of the day, the difference between a business that's successful and that is not least about how much cash that it's got in the bank. So moving on to culture and engagement, this idea of emphasizing people metrics and KPIs, we really need to think about measures that will help drive the kind of culture and behaviors that we want. And things like the Smart 90 rhythm that we instill within businesses that we work with really helps with that engagement. And we need to make that effort to proactively drive the good behaviors that we want. And a good KPI, of course, should drive the development of your strong processes behind it. And again, it's about experimentation and learning. And just to back that up, as I mentioned earlier, one of the key things that challenges as businesses grow are the fact that the people issues come to the fore. Well, when we asked businesses what their top 5 KPIs were, only 4% related to staff metrics. Now, it's not easy to do, but there's clearly a disconnect there, and one that we need to be aware of and think about. And then cultivating team engagement. We need to use things like the team charters, regular touch points, business rhythms to really get that engagement going and lead by example from the kind of behaviors that we want. If we can't acknowledge our own mistakes, then how can we expect to have a culture where people are prepared to acknowledge their mistakes and learn from them? And that leads into developing our staff. One of these challenges of scaling up is transitioning from us being the one leading and driving everything and people following to developing leaders within the business. So we need to be developing our people, and we need to have succession plans and development plans for all of our key people. So if you haven't got those in place, then you need to think about doing those. And moving on to the chicken and the egg, part of this in the early stages is about effective time management. We need to be thinking about how we get ourselves out of the day-to-day. We can't suddenly, as we said before, take on lots of people because we haven't got the money to do that. We can't necessarily outsource everything for the same reason, but we can start to have the mindset, which is how do I get myself out of key roles? What's the next role that I'm going to make myself redundant from, so that we don't end up keeping hold of too many things, because if we do, then we'll just strangle the business. We'll be the bottleneck in the business, and you'll probably give yourself a heart attack along the way. So there's some of the things within that. And then the chicken and egg again with strategic funding and then external confidence. I've talked through this a little bit before, but again, if you create a business with a strong competitive advantage, you'll want to consider how you can capitalize on that probably before somebody else cottons on, because a competitive advantage typically will only last for so long. You've got to be keeping on developing that. So, and again, if we had this crystal ball and we knew it was going to be a success, we'd be confident in asking for the funding. So again, it comes back to that first point really of getting that confidence within the business. So there's really what I wanted to cover. Here's a quick reminder of those 5 key causes: the desire and confidence, personality, leadership, understanding what it really takes to scale, focusing on culture and team engagement, and overcoming the chicken and egg. And there's an overview of some of the challenges, strategies, and recommendations. What I'd like to do now, after giving you the challenge of saying, what are you going to do? What one thing are you going to do that might help to address one of those 5 challenges of scaling over 7 figures? And what I'd like to do now is to hand over to Chris. So Chris Cook he's the founder of Chantry Group, and they're the leading franchise growth agency in the UK, if not in Europe. And they've got some very high-profile, well-known clients such as Shell, British Gas, Dynarod. But they also work with less well-known clients, and including they have a chimney sweep franchise. So all sorts of different things. And so not only has he built a great business and has learned a lot along the way and built a great team as well, he's a top bloke too. So Chris, over to you.
Hello, thank you, Kevin. Just for reference, my New Year's resolution, which I'm sticking to, was to be more concise. So I will try and rattle through my various points. I'm really into giving people value, and I want to try and leave some golden nuggets for you guys. I don't know quite whether I should be here or not. I'm certainly on a journey, as a journey of scaling up. I don't necessarily feel I have the right to speak to you guys, but I'm going to share some stuff that I've been through, and if some of that helps, then great. But equally, I don't see why one of you couldn't potentially be doing this, because I don't feel that I'm necessarily above or below anyone. It's just Kevin's asked me to give some points. So first of all, a little bit about me. So I work in the franchise space. I've got a commercial cleaning business as a franchisee, and I've learned a lot. There's a reason why I'm telling you this. I've learned a lot from that commercial cleaning business. We've had it for about 10 years now, and I ran it and have grown it as a managed business. So I've been one step removed from the doing, from the daily operations. I probably spend approximately 8 hours a month on that business with a management meeting once a month and various other bits. That has taught me so much. It's a very painful journey. I'm not naturally very good at managing and growing businesses. It's not really my forte, and I've learned a lot from that. That's not the business I'm talking about today, but it's relevant to my background. I also do training for the British Franchise Association. I have done that for about 8 years on how to grow and scale franchises. I've got a property business which we recently started, and obviously the one we're talking about today is Chantry. So Chantry started back in 2007. We specialise in the franchise space. We've sort of grown quite large now. We're the biggest in our service offerings. And we're the leaders. We do marketing to help people grow their franchises, from attracting new franchisees to helping existing franchisees to grow their businesses and launching new franchisees when they arrive. We help the recruitment piece as well, and we also help with the exit. So we do the valuation and help with the resale. So we're business brokers as well. So there's 3 strands to the business. It started off with just myself. And a few freelancers or consultants. And back in about 7-8 years ago, what was that, about 2016, somewhere around there, I decided that I wanted to help more businesses. And therefore, this is where the scale-up journey began for me. So the business had tickled along, trying different options and different growth strategies to that point. We're now, just to give you a scale, 18 full-time, which may be small or big compared to you guys, but that's where we are. And we also use, obviously, a band of freelancers for projects when we need people to come in, experts in their respective fields. We're punching around, I don't know if this is relevant or not, but it gives you a scale. So back in sort of that period I was talking about, the core business was chucking out around £8,000 a month's worth of invoices, so very, very small amount of money. Compared to what we're doing now, and now we chuck out around £100,000 a month. So the difference has been quite considerable over that period. I'm just telling you that so you can understand the journey that we've been on. I've been working, for transparency, I've been working with Kevin and the guys for about a year and a bit now, and really got a lot of value from it. So I will touch on some of the things that we found value from, because I think they've really helped me and the team get the business from where it was to where it is going. So I've got 5 points I want to cover. The first one is around culture. So when I started this sort of next chapter of the journey back in 2016-17, I managed to attract some really lovely people. The biggest thing I did was trust that they could work from home offices. This was before COVID and everyone had sort of got into that whole space that we're in now. And we as a result of that, we're able to pay less money, to get better talent, because they obviously had a lifestyle improvement. It's probably not the same now, but in those days it was very relevant. And I had to sort of get over my sitting people in an office, looking at them and making sure they were doing their work. And that was a big step change for me, and that the beginning of this chapter that we're in. Whether it's right or wrong, I don't know, but it certainly allowed us to scale quite considerably by getting over that fear. So we started bringing in some really good people. They brought in more people, and we got quite well known as a group of nice people in the industry, and lots of other nice people who were really good in their fields wanted to come and join us. Not wanting to get into details, but most of the people were taking a step down in their remuneration package to join Chantry and to work with us as a team. So we've got a really lovely culture, and the culture is one of the things I think that's most important. And how you protect that as you grow is becoming more and more challenging. And I'll talk about that in a little while. But the culture piece, if you can build that nice atmosphere and retain the atmosphere, as you get more and more people underneath you, it somehow, if you can keep that, the business can continue to scale and to grow. So I've got people all over the country rather than all in one office in one local area. So they're spread around, to, not just in this country, abroad as well. And I trust them to do their job. Most of them have been in the business for a long time now. So we've been on this journey, this bit of the journey for about 8 years, and we've got really good longevity with the guys that are good. Some people have come and gone, as I suspect you'll all experience. But I think one of the big things I focus on is making sure we try and retain a nice atmosphere which retains those people, and those people, as I say, maybe could be remunerated a lot higher if they went elsewhere, but they wouldn't have the nice atmosphere and the nice working environment and the group of people that they're within. So it's very important. Number two, so that was number one. Number two is about the people to build the actual business. Now, I have I'll tell you, I'm a cockatoo, as Kevin was just talking about disc profiles. So I have my weaknesses and my strengths, and I've managed to build an SLT, senior leadership team, around me, basically made them part-time senior leadership team members. So this is another golden nugget from me. If you haven't got the money, which I don't, to put in full-time senior leadership team members, so someone that looks after operations, someone that looks after BD, someone that does the financial stuff, someone that's in charge of the HR. If you haven't got all the resource to put those people in full time, I managed to get people, we have recruited more recently into the positions, but to start with, we built a senior leadership team around the people we had and gave them it as a part-time role. And that was a game changer. So I'll come on to how we remunerated and how we rewarded and tied them in as a next step. But this was a big thing for me. So this part-time senior leadership team. The next, so I'm still number 2 at the moment, was the remuneration strategy for the senior leadership team. So I wanted a bonus scheme that obviously drove them to drive the growth of the business. And I'd managed to find this structure. So we run an LLP alongside the limited company. The company that does it is called Optimal Compliance. They're based in London. They're a really nice group of accountants. And we were able to put together a bonus scheme so that we're sharing profits from the business, the excess profits. And that obviously made people feel very wanted, because I made them a partner in the partnership, which isn't actually the business, but anyway. And they felt very wanted from that. They'd sort of committed to having a self-assessment tax return as a partner, and they were getting a bonus every quarter, and they were getting loads of visibility of our accounts, which we obviously show what we want to show, because it's not the core business, it's a separate business, but it's all very straight up. It also, we have I don't know if anyone knows about EMIs, but it's an exit plan for senior members of your team that you can tie them in to get a payout when you sell the business and the assets, the shares are sold. You can't do an EMI with an LLP, so we're doing a different share option thing with that, but it's the same concept as an EMI. So if anyone's heard of an EMI, it's a really good thing to help tie people into your exit. My journey is probably another 3 or 4 years. It's not publicly shouted about, but that's probably what we're going to end up doing to get to the exit point. The next thing is about responsibility. Now, I'm not very good at delegating, and I recently did a 360 appraisal. So I appraised all the SLT, and everyone else in the business was being appraised as well. And then I let them appraise me, which was a bit scary. And they all gave their feedback, the SLT members, of me and where I was strong and weak and how I could improve, which was really useful for me to hear. It's all very well me telling them what to do all the time or working with them on what to do, but sometimes it's nice to hear that feedback. So I have to give them responsibility and let them do their thing. Sometimes things don't go how I would have done them, and sometimes that costs money, but as a group of people, we're really strong and we all work together and we're all happy to tell each other what we think, and it's a really nice atmosphere. So if you can build that, it's taken me a few years to build that atmosphere, but it's really worth it. We feel really connected, we feel we've got plans, we're going in the same direction, everyone feels part of the journey. It's a really nice atmosphere. It's quite fun to work in, so I would encourage that. Managing the senior leadership team was my next point. So we have used some of the tools that Kevin has provided. He's talked about some of them on the call already, but I wanted to talk about them and how we've used them. So it just turns out we're very lucky that when we did the disc profiling on our senior leadership team, we've got someone in all the different areas of the disc circle. So I'm a cockatoo, we've got a falcon, we've got a guy who's sort of between a cockatoo and a falcon at the top, and then down the bottom we've got a dove, we've got an owl, and we've got someone who's a dovish cockatoo as well. And that mix is brilliant, because when you actually, I don't know if everyone's done disc profiling. I always used to think it was a silly thing that you did when you were like a massive business and loads of money spare, but we did it. It was brilliant. We've done it again. We're now running it as part of a quarterly meeting where we revisit what the disc profiles tell us and how we work together. So we've got individual comparison documents between how we operate. We've done a charter recently, which is getting the whole business, all of the different people, to tell each other how they want to behave. That was really powerful, and I can recommend doing that. We've done org charts and mapped out how the business is going to go. They haven't necessarily followed the org charts, but I would recommend that as a really strong activity. We use the Smart 90, which is a quarterly, get the senior leadership team together, go through all the priorities and set out tasks for the coming 3 months, the 90 days. And that's really powerful. That's through Kevin. We've used the Smart Web and the Smart Vision, which are both tools that Kevin provides, which have been absolutely priceless. it's not me that's getting the value from this, it's the team, and the team then are able to take the task on of driving the different areas of the business, and suddenly it's not all about me. So that's been really powerful. So I would say follow the systems.
Thank you very much for that, Chris. That's phenomenal. Some really good insights in there. And let's see if we've got a couple of questions. I think we could probably do a couple of questions without sacrificing too much of our breakout time. So has anybody got an urgent burning question that they'd like to ask Chris? So Helen.
Hi, Chris. Can you explain what the charter is? You said you did a charter, and I thought, what's that?
So we have, as I said, a really strong culture, and that started to wane a little bit. We've had a few issues with some of the people not necessarily going in the direction. They liked the cottage style chantry previously. They don't like where we're going. So what we've decided, Kevin gave us the advice and guidance, but it was put together a charter, and apparently someone called Sir Alex Ferguson used it at Man United. Now, I'm not into football particularly, like playing it, but not really watching it. But apparently I'd heard of Sir Alex Ferguson, thought he was pretty good at managing, so I decided that this was a good idea. The team have all gone and basically listed out what the behaviours are that are acceptable within chantry, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. So they then police what the other people are all doing. So if someone starts messing about and not doing their job or letting the side down, they, in theory, we haven't finished it yet, they should start to police their own. So I haven't got to be the bad cop all the time. And the other senior leadership team members don't. The whole business starts to
Lovely, thank you. And I've got 2 Man U supporters, so that would go down well.
Right. Adam, you had a question, I think.
Yeah, Chris, you mentioned personality types as part of the SLT team. Would you recommend that, every SME look at the sort of personality types of their employees, whether it's for SLT teams or for hiring or just for task assignments, to really find out who prefers what type of work, that kind of thing? Would you recommend that for everyone, or is it just specific types of businesses?
If you'd asked me a year and a half to 2 years ago, I'd have told you, nah, just get on with it. Now we've done it all. It's brilliant. And we have decided we want to do it for the whole team. It's just cost a couple of quid. So we haven't done it yet, but we've done the SLT and we've been working how that, it's just changed our atmosphere. It's changed how we work together. It's so lovely. The atmosphere we've now got, we're all happy to shout at each other in a constructive way, but we're much more aware of how each other react and what, I have to leave him time to speak because I speak all the time. Let him have a space. Let him say his mind. This guy takes ages to make a decision. Let him have till tomorrow, then find out what he says. Each person's got their strengths and weaknesses. And I think if you could put that, it is an investment. I think it's, I don't want to cause any problems, but about 100 quid a person. So if you obviously have quite a few people to do, it's quite a lot of money. But now I've done it, I would recommend it. Previously, I was like, nah, it's one of those things that everybody who's big businesses do.
Through what portal was that? You mentioned £100 per person. What?
Kevin provided it. And I personally, and this is not a sales pitch, I'm not here to sell Kevin, but we had a chairman. This is my next point on the thing, which I ran out of time to say, was I had a chairman before this who I brought in to help me scale, and he had a lot of the systems and processes that Kevin's organisation has provided to us. It didn't really work. We also had COVID, which was a little bit of a distraction, but the way we operated just wasn't clicking, whereas the conciseness of the processes that we've been given by Kevin, everything is very constructed and precise and controlled, and that has worked really well for us. So we have this much time, we have to allocate it to that, then we go back to what we were doing, and that is brilliant.
Thank you.
Super. Brilliant. I hope you enjoyed that discussion, and if you're building and scaling your own business, you might well be interested in our book, The Entrepreneurial ScaleUp System. And it's exactly what it says on the tin. It's a practical handbook around scaling a business in a structured way. And you can order a copy on all your favorite online retailers, including an audio version, or you can find it and other supporting resources on our website, www.esusgroup.co.uk. That's esusgroup.co.uk, which is esusgroup.co.uk.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.